The weirdest part? The funnel cake never left my hand. I stood there, powdered sugar falling like ash down my black hoodie, watching her laugh. You know the laugh, that specific one. The one where her shoulders lift and she scrunches her nose, like the world is too much joy to contain. That laugh was mine. Or at least, I thought it was. She laughed like that while holding another man's hand. And he was doing the thumb circle thing. You know, the gentle rub. The I'm yours rub. Meanwhile, my other hand, it was clenched around a felt ring box stuffed inside my sock, because I'd been too paranoid she'd find it in my backpack. I wasn't supposed to see them. They didn't know I'd circled back around after leaving the Porta-Johns. They thought I was waiting by the acoustic stage for some washed-out folk duo she adored. But the universe has a sick sense of humor. I took a shortcut through the vendor strip, and there they were, center frame, under a free hug sign like some twisted rom-com promo shot. She was wearing the flannel I gave her for Christmas. He was wearing cologne I could smell through the breeze. They weren't just standing close. They were woven together. Like people who'd done this before. Like people with muscle memory. And I just stood there. Funnel cake in one hand. Sweat forming in the sock where I'd hidden the most expensive thing I'd ever bought. Watching the woman I thought I'd be proposing to in about 4 hours, probably at golden hour, during that band she loves, lean her forehead into a man whose name I didn't even know. I didn't cry. I didn't confront. I didn't speak. I turned around, and I walked straight into the Porta-John again and locked it. I stayed there for 11 minutes. Not because I was scared, but because I didn't know how to exist anymore. I sat on the closed lid, the ring box burning against my ankle like a lie I hadn't told yet. She still hasn't seen me. She probably thinks I got lost buying cider or passed out in a hammock again. I'm not sure what story she's told herself. Or maybe she doesn't care enough to make one up. But me? I drove home that night without saying goodbye. She doesn't know I left the festival. She doesn't know I saw anything. And she sure as hell doesn't know the ring is now buried beneath a gas station maple tree 3 towns over. The story gets worse. Much worse. I got home around 3 a.m., still wearing the wristband from the festival. I didn't even take my boots off. I just collapsed on the old couch, the one we picked out together at that stupid warehouse sale where she argued with the salesman for 20 minutes about ethical upholstery. I lay there, motionless, with dried sweat on my shirt and the faint smell of cider still hanging in my hair. My mind didn't race, it replayed. Like a glitchy DVD skipping back to the same 15-second scene. Over and over. I kept seeing it. Her thumb grazing the inside of his palm, the flannel sleeves rolled just enough to reveal her bracelets. Her eyes locked on his like they were sharing a secret joke I was never invited to. I could still hear her laugh if I sat in silence long enough. It was terrifying how clear it all was, like my brain had filed the betrayal under permanent. At 3:14 a.m., my phone lit up. Lakin, 3 missed calls. 1 new voicemail. I didn't check the voicemail. I just stared at her name. It didn't even feel like her anymore. Just 6 letters tied to a stranger who wore my flannel while holding someone else's hand. I wanted to listen. I almost tapped the notification. But I knew if I heard her voice, if she used that soft tone she always used when something was a misunderstanding, I might break. I might even go back. That thought made me sick. Around 4 a.m., I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the Altoids tin. The ring was still inside, tucked between 2 actual mints for camouflage. I held it in my palm and thought about how ridiculous it all was. The months of saving. The secret planning. The Pinterest boards I stalked just to get it right. All of it for nothing. She'd been writing a different future behind my back, while I was out here scripting the proposal like it was a damn movie. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat the next morning. I just sat on that couch, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing by, trying to figure out whether I was angry, heartbroken, embarrassed, or just numb. By noon, she texted me. Hey, where are you? Thought you were grabbing food, grinning face with sweat. Then again, 15 minutes later. Seriously, you okay? I can't find you. I'm freaking out. And then, nothing. For hours. Silence. Maybe she realized. Maybe someone told her I left. Or maybe she just went back to the guy in the green Henley and laughed it off. I didn't care. At least, I told myself I didn't. Later that day, I did something stupid. I logged into her iPad. She left it connected to our home Wi-Fi. We always shared passwords. She once called it radical transparency, like we were some power couple on a trust retreat. I opened her messages, Not because I wanted to catch her lying, but because I needed confirmation that I wasn't insane. That what I saw wasn't just me misreading a moment in the chaos of a music festival. And there it was. A message thread with Nate Evergreen Tree. I wish I was joking about the emoji. No hiding. No code names. Just raw, unfiltered flirting. Nate, you looked unreal today. Like, actually glowing. Lakin, you make me forget where I am sometimes lol. Nate, wish you didn't have to sneak away tonight. Felt weird seeing you run off. Lakin, yeah. He's probably sulking somewhere. He gets dramatic when he's tired, grimacing face. That last message hit harder than the hand-holding. I wasn't just being replaced. I was being mocked. Reduced to some sulking extra in a scene she didn't even want me in anymore. All while I was carrying around the symbol of a future she'd already walked out of. But I didn't delete the thread. I didn't send a message. I didn't even log out. Because part of me wanted to see how far it would go. What she would do next, not knowing I knew. Like I was watching a play from backstage, waiting for the main character to drop their mask. I'd love to tell you I confronted her, that I stood up and burned it all down with righteous fury. But I didn't. Not yet. Because what happened next made everything worse. And I mean everything. It was around 6 p.m. The next day, when I heard the lock turn, I had just gotten out of the shower. Not because I wanted to feel clean, but because I needed to do something that didn't involve staring at the iPad screen. Rereading that he's dramatic when he's tired line for the 100th time. I hadn't eaten. My stomach felt like it had been stapled shut. The only thing I could keep down was black coffee and that bitter feeling in my throat. The door creaked open. She walked in like nothing was wrong. Like we hadn't just crossed the threshold of something we could never undo. She was wearing that oversized yellow hoodie I always stole from her. Hood up, sunglasses on, earbuds still in. She dropped her bag by the shoe rack and exhaled through her nose like she'd just finished a workout. Not a word. Not even a glance in my direction. I stayed in the hallway, towel draped over my shoulder, frozen. She finally looked at me. Blinked. Smiled. Smiled. Hey, babe. You ghosted me, she said, like I'd just missed a dinner reservation. I seriously thought something happened. Where'd you go? There it was. The act. The sweet, playful tone. The bait. I stared at her like she was speaking in a language I'd forgotten. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slam the iPad in front of her and demand she explain Nate Evergreen Tree and his stupid emoji. I wanted her to admit it. I wanted her to cry, or lie, or fall to her knees and confess something. But instead, I said nothing. I just walked back into the living room, sat down on the edge of the couch, and stared at the TV, which wasn't even on. My silence must have thrown her off, because for the first time in a long time, she didn't know what to do with me. You good? She asked, peeking around the corner. Like really? You're being weird. Weird. That's what I was now. Weird. Not betrayed. Not heartbroken. Just inconvenient. I finally looked at her and asked, did you have fun yesterday? She shrugged, too casual. Yeah, it was chill. Nate made us get up front for that one band. You'd have hated it. Super crowded. She said his name like it was nothing. Like she was just chatting about a coworker who borrowed her stapler. My brain caught fire. Did you tell him about us? I asked, forcing the words out slow, calm, dangerous. She tilted her head. What? Elle, seriously, what are you talking about? I stood up, walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it. I didn't want food. I just needed something, anything, to ground me. The air felt electric, tense. I could feel her watching me, the cracks forming in her expression. I saw you, I finally said. Yesterday. With him. Holding his hand. You kissed his cheek. There was a beat of silence. Just a second or two, but it was enough. That pause. That tiny delay. It told me everything. She blinked fast. Wait, what? I saw you. I repeated, voice low. You didn't see me. But I saw you. And I didn't interrupt. I didn't say a word. I just left. Her jaw clenched. Her lips parted slightly, then closed again. She folded her arms, but her hands trembled. Only a little, but enough that I noticed. Elwood, it wasn't like that. That sentence. That damn sentence. The universal starter pack of the guilty. She stepped forward. I swear to God, Elle, you're making this into something it's not. Nate and he's going through a breakup, and I was comforting him. By holding hands? I asked, unable to stop the bitterness. By nuzzling into him in public? In my flannel? Her eyes flicked down. She was still wearing it. Her face tightened, and I could tell she was about to pivot, switch strategies. You were acting distant lately, she said, her voice rising. You shut down all the time. You get quiet. You stop saying nice things. I didn't even know where we were anymore. I thought you might have been planning to break up with me, Elle? And now you're spying on me? There it was. The turn. She was putting me on trial now. You thought I was going to break up with you? I laughed, sharp, broken, disbelieving. Lakin, I had a ring. In my sock. At the festival. I was going to propose. She blinked. I watched the color drain from her face. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked like she'd been slapped. You had a, she started, barely above a whisper. Yeah, I said, stepping past her. I was going to do it after your favorite band set. During golden hour. It was supposed to be perfect. But instead, I watched you giggle into some guy's neck while I carried funnel cake and a ring I can't afford anymore. She sat down. Didn't cry. Didn't yell. Just sat. I don't know if it was guilt, or panic, or the realization that she had crossed a line she couldn't step back from. But the silence between us in that moment was louder than any screaming match could have ever been. And it was only the beginning. Because what she did next wasn't regret. It was strategy. I thought, for one brief, stupid moment, that the truth would settle things. That me laying everything out like that, the hand-holding, the kiss on the cheek, the ring, the heartbreak, would crack something open inside her. Maybe even spark a little shame. But Lakin didn't collapse. She didn't apologize or beg or break into sobs like in the movies. She recalibrated. That's the only word I can think of to describe what happened in those next few seconds. It was like watching someone shift gears internally, as if her brain rerouted itself and found a better way to spin the story. She took a breath, let it out slow, and when she looked up at me, she didn't look sorry. She looked calculating. I think we need to talk about your paranoia, she said. The words hit me like cold water. Paranoia? She nodded, slowly, like she was explaining something to a fragile patient. You've always had trust issues, Elle. Even when things were fine between us, you'd get weird about me working late or hanging out with coworkers. You assumed the worst, even when there was nothing to worry about. And now this. I stared at her in stunned silence. She wasn't even trying to deny it anymore, just reframing it. Recasting herself as the misunderstood partner and me as the insecure, emotionally unstable boyfriend who saw betrayal where there was only friendship. I almost couldn't believe it. You really want to go with that angle? I said, laughing under my breath. That I imagined you holding his hand and leaning into him like a damn rom-com. That I invented the text messages between you and Nate? At that, her face faltered, just for a split second. But then, like a professional actress who missed a line and recovered instantly, she straightened up. You went through my iPad? She asked, tone sharpening. Wow, that's a huge violation of my privacy. No wonder I can't talk to you about anything. I nearly dropped the coffee mug I was holding. You're not serious. I'm dead serious, she replied, rising from the couch. Whatever this isn't healthy, Elle. You're spiraling. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I felt like I was being gaslit in real time. She had just been caught red-handed, and now I was somehow the villain in this story. I wanted to shout, to flip the table, to throw her damn hoodie out the window. But I just stood there, frozen, while she paced the kitchen like some calm, self-righteous guru giving a TED talk on emotional maturity. Then she dropped the next bomb. You should talk to someone, she said. A therapist. Or maybe even your mom. I know you've been struggling with anxiety lately, and I think this whole situation is you projecting. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. A hollow, bitter sound. You're insane. No, she replied, without hesitation. I just know when someone I love is falling apart. She said that last part like she was doing me a favor, like she was still the hero of her own story. And somehow, after everything she'd done, she was trying to walk away as the wounded party. I didn't respond. I didn't have words for it. She stood there for a while, waiting for me to say something. But I didn't. So she just shrugged, grabbed her phone, and walked into the bedroom. A few minutes later, I heard the door click shut. Locked. She stayed in there for the rest of the night. I didn't sleep. I sat on the living room floor until sunrise, leaning against the couch, scrolling back through their messages like I was trying to find a hidden clause that would make it all make sense. But there wasn't one. Just dozens of little digital betrayals, dressed up in emojis and inside jokes, each more casual than the last. The next morning, I heard her in the kitchen, making coffee, humming. She had the nerve to hum. And then came her final insult. She poked her head into the living room and said, "I'm going to work. We can finish this later. But maybe don't touch my stuff again, okay? It's kinda toxic." Toxic. I sat there, blinking, stunned by how effortlessly she twisted it all. She walked out of the apartment without waiting for a response. And here's where it gets worse. Because later that day, while she was still pretending to be the victim, she started bringing other people into it. Mutual friends. Her sister. People I barely talked to. Suddenly, my phone was lighting up with vague texts like, "Hey, heard you and Lakin are going through it. You okay?" Not trying to pick sides, man. But I didn't know things were so intense with you guys. She was painting a picture. Slowly, methodically. Framing me as the emotionally unstable, privacy-invading boyfriend who cracked under pressure and invented a fantasy to justify his own meltdown. She was erasing my version of the story, and she was doing it one person at a time. It's one thing to be lied to. It's another thing to be rewritten. But the worst feeling in the world, the one that gets under your skin and sinks in like cold water, is realizing someone you trusted is not just erasing you from the truth, but using your own people to paint over the past. It started with those weird texts from friends. Little check-ins, like they were trying to verify whether the rumors Lakin was sprinkling around were true. I didn't answer most of them. I didn't have the energy to explain that. No, I wasn't spiraling or managing trauma badly. I was just heartbroken, blindsided, and trying not to drown in the silence that followed the explosion. But then she went nuclear. It was a Thursday night when my sister Beth called me. Now, for context, Beth is 6 years older than me. She's the calm one in the family, the mediator, the peacekeeper, the unofficial therapist at Thanksgiving. She loves Lakin. Used to call her a breath of light. That alone should have told me this wouldn't go well. "Elle," she said softly as soon as I answered. "Lakin stopped by the bookstore today." I sat up. My heart dropped straight through my stomach. She what? Beth owns a little indie bookstore downtown. The kind with creaky floors and handwritten staff picks. Lakin used to love spending time there. Apparently, she still did. She came by after lunch, Beth continued. Said she just needed someone to talk to. I thought she was just dropping off a return or something, but, Elwood, she was crying. "Jesus Christ," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. "She said you'd been having a really rough time. That she's worried about you. Said she caught you going through her devices. That you've been unstable." She didn't go into detail, but she said you accused her of things that didn't happen. That you're not sleeping. That you're shutting down. And you believed her? There was a pause. Not long, but enough. "I don't know what to believe," Beth said gently. She didn't badmouth you. It didn't feel like gossip. It felt like someone trying to help. I laughed, sharp, humorless. "She's manipulating you, Beth. She's manipulating everyone. She cheated on me. Emotionally, maybe physically. I don't even know anymore. But she's trying to cover it by making me look crazy. And now she's dragging you into it." Beth was quiet for a long time. I could hear her tapping her fingers against the countertop, probably biting her lip like she always did when she was conflicted. "She said she found a ring," she said finally. "That stopped me." "What?" "She didn't open it, apparently. Just felt it in your jacket lining. She said it scared her. That she didn't know you were at that place yet. That she felt trapped." My throat dried up. My ears started ringing. For a few seconds, I couldn't process the words. Trapped? She felt trapped? I had saved for months. Sold my stuff. Ate ramen dinners. Resized a ring that looked like her grandmother's because she once said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. And now, retroactively, she was turning my love into a threat? I couldn't speak. I didn't trust myself to. Beth must have sensed it because she added, "Elle, I'm not taking sides. I swear. But if something deeper is going on with you, if this situation triggered something, you can talk to me. I just want you okay." "I'm fine," I said flatly. "I'm just the one telling the truth." After we hung up, I sat alone in the dark, feeling something I hadn't felt until that moment, shame. Not because of anything I'd done, but because I could feel the shift happening. The narrative, the rewriting, the version of events where I was unwell and obsessive, and she was the brave woman who had to walk away for her own safety. And the worst part? It was working. She was using her tears like ink, rewriting reality. She was dragging my own sister into it, planting seeds that, no matter how many times I said, "I'm okay," would keep growing into questions. That night, I opened the trash bag I'd stuffed her things into. The hoodie, the framed photo from Vermont, the stupid hand-poured candle that smelled like mountain air, and took it out. Not to forgive her, but to study it. To look at the life we'd built like it was evidence. Like I was a detective trying to solve a case no one else believed was real. It was all there, dates, memories, receipts, ticket stubs, and yet none of it mattered now. Because truth doesn't win in silence. Stories do, and she was better at telling hers. But I wasn't about to let her be the only narrator. Not anymore. I didn't plan to go nuclear. That wasn't my style. I wasn't the guy who aired his dirty laundry in public or ranted on social media for sympathy. I kept things quiet, controlled, internal, probably to a fault. But when you're standing in the middle of a house someone else lit on fire, eventually you stop trying to put it out. You let it burn, and sometimes, if you're desperate enough, you start pulling down walls to prove it was never your match that started it. That Sunday, I opened her laptop. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for clarity. Proof. Maybe even one single message where she admitted what she'd done. Some evidence that I wasn't losing my mind. I didn't expect to find anything because by then, I figured she'd already wiped most of it. She was smart. Strategic. She didn't keep skeletons. She burned them. But she missed something. One thing. Her iMessages were synced. I didn't even have to guess the password. It was still the name of her favorite dog from childhood. I opened the app and immediately saw the blue and gray bubble ballet I'd been hoping not to see. Dozens of messages between her and Nate. And even more damning, her group chat with 3 of her closest friends. All women I used to call our friends. People we'd hosted game nights with, toasted birthdays with, shared Uber rides home with after long dinners filled with laughter and secrets. And now they were helping her build a story. Taryn. Wait, he actually had a ring? Girl, what? That's unhinged. Lakin, right? He was going to do it at the food truck. Like, in public. I would have had to say yes just to not humiliate him loudly crying face. Mila, that's manipulative. You don't spring that on someone unless you know it's mutual. Lakin, it wasn't. Not even close. I told you guys he's been acting off for months. Kelsey, you need to get out of there. Do it before he turns into one of those weird TikTok storytime X's LOL. I kept reading. Each message another wound. Another twist of the knife. Lakin wasn't just rewriting the story, she was workshopping it. With a team. They weren't just friends, they were editors. Punching up the script of her victimhood while I sat alone in the apartment I paid for, trying to remember which parts of our relationship were real and which were rewritten after the credits started rolling. That's when something inside me cracked. I didn't post anything online. I didn't confront her in person. What I did was send a single message to one person. I picked Mila, the one I trusted the most. The one who, out of the 3, had always been the most polite to me. She'd cried once when she got too drunk at our housewarming party and told me her ex used to cheat on her all the time. I figured if anyone had a shred of empathy, it'd be her. I wrote, "Hey, I know you're close to Lakin, and I'm not trying to drag you into this. But if you're going to help her paint me as some kind of unstable manipulator, you should at least have the full context. Just read these. Then decide." Then I attached the screenshots. The messages between Lakin and Nate. The planning. The flirting. The hand-holding jokes. The one where she said, "He still has no idea. It's kind of hilarious." And I waited. 2 hours later, Mila responded. Jesus, Elwood. Just that. No defense. No spin. No, you're still not blameless. Just a name. Like she'd just seen a different version of someone she thought she knew. The next morning, things changed. Lakin came home early from work, face flushed, jaw locked. She didn't even put her bag down. "What did you do?" she demanded. I didn't pretend not to know. I didn't lie. "I gave someone the truth," I said. "Since you were so busy telling everyone else's story." Her eyes filled with fury. Not sadness. Not guilt. Just rage. That kind of cold, white-hot anger people get when they lose control of the narrative. "You crossed a line." "No," I replied. "You did. I just highlighted it." She stormed into the bedroom. Slammed the door. I could hear her calling someone. Maybe Mila. Maybe Nate. Maybe her sister. I don't know. Her voice was muffled but frantic. And for the first time in weeks, I felt calm. Not good. Not whole. Not healed. But calm. Because no matter what she did next, how many more people she tried to sway, I had finally stopped playing defense. I was done being the villain in her bedtime story. But I wasn't prepared for what she'd do next. Because she wasn't done. Not even close. 3 days passed with no words between us. We coexisted like cold statues in opposite corners of a crumbling cathedral. Lakin barely came out of the bedroom except to shower, and when she did, it was like watching a stranger walk through my home. Quiet, careful, always watching to see if I'd do something worth documenting. She wasn't crying anymore. The softness had vanished. Her face was stiff, her movements sharp. I'd come to recognize this new version of her. This wasn't the woman I wanted to marry. This was the manager of her own reputation, calculating and cold, like she was preparing to stand trial for a crime she hadn't technically committed, but morally? She knew she'd crossed the line. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. Not a text, not a voicemail, not a sticky note taped to the fridge with a passive-aggressive smiley face. A real letter, in a white envelope with my full name printed neatly across the front. At first, I thought it was a bill, or maybe a card from one of the few friends I hadn't lost in the fallout. But when I opened it, the blood drained from my face. It was from a mediation office, a family conflict resolution center, the kind usually reserved for custody issues or couples filing for civil separation. Inside, a printed notice said Lakin had formally requested a facilitated conversation regarding emotional boundaries, shared property, and psychological safety within a shared domestic arrangement. Psychological safety. That was the phrase that stopped my heart. She was filing a formal paper trail, one that could follow me long after she left. If she wanted to, she could build a case. Accusations. Claims of emotional instability. She could hint at being afraid of me, without ever having to say the words directly. Just plant the seed. And in this world, that's all it takes. She wasn't trying to solve anything anymore. She was trying to protect her exit strategy. And if I got destroyed in the process, that was just collateral damage. I don't even remember standing up. I just remember shaking, the paper fluttering in my hands, my ears roaring with panic. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was war. When she came out of the room that evening, dressed for work, purse slung over her shoulder, I didn't yell. I didn't throw the letter. I just asked one question. Why are you doing this? She looked at me. No emotion. No regret. Just that same flat stare she'd been perfecting in the mirror, probably rehearsed like a monologue. Because I don't feel safe anymore, she said. I stared at her. Safe? I've never even raised my voice to you. Never touched you in anger. Never once made you feel threatened. That's not the point, she said softly, like she was already practicing for a deposition. It's about emotional pressure, surveillance, invasion of privacy, gaslighting. My mouth opened, then closed. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. You cheated, I whispered. You lied. You turned my proposal into a joke in your group chat. And now you're painting me as the danger? I'm protecting my future, she said. That's all. She walked out. Just like that. No argument. No slammed doors. Just cold, precise damage. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid on the living room floor, staring up at the ceiling, thinking about how close I came to giving this woman my last name. My money. My loyalty. My time. How she'd taken it all and left me with a file number at a mediation office. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to defend myself anymore. Not privately. Not quietly. So I opened a blank document. And I started to write. Not for her. Not for revenge. But for me. Every detail. Every red flag. Every manipulation. The messages. The timing. The iPad. The funnel cake. The ring in my sock. I put it all in black and white. Because when someone tries to erase you from your own story, the only weapon you have left is truth. Loud. Unfiltered. And permanent. I didn't know where it would end yet. But I finally knew how it started. And she wasn't going to be the only one telling the world what happened. I never expected peace to come from a grocery store parking lot. But that's where it happened. 3 weeks after she moved out. 3 weeks after the mediation notice. The silence. The text from mutuals asking me how I was holding up. I stood outside a gas station with a plastic bag in one hand and a carton of eggs tucked under my arm. The weather was perfect. One of those quiet spring mornings where the air smells like wet soil and everything feels like it might still turn out okay. I hadn't spoken to Lakin since she left. She never followed up with the mediation office. Maybe she thought I'd retaliate, escalate, try to get even. But I didn't. I didn't have to. The story she'd written about me was already unraveling on its own. Mila stopped answering her calls. Kelsey unfollowed both of us. Even Beth, my sister, called one night, crying. I should have believed you, she said. I just didn't want to think she could do something like that. I told her it was okay. And for the first time in months, I meant it. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need an apology. I didn't even need an explanation. What I needed, what I finally gave myself, was a way out of the cage I'd willingly stayed in for too long. I started going back to the gym. Not out of rage, not for some post-breakup revenge body. I just wanted to feel strong again. Like my body still belonged to me. I started journaling. That sounds cheesy, I know. But writing saved me. Not in the I published a memoir and found closure kind of way. Just in the sense that it gave me back the truth. I stopped rewriting myself through her lens. A month later, I deleted the screenshots, the iMessages, the photos, all of it. Not out of forgiveness, but because I didn't need the evidence anymore. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. The people who mattered already knew. And the ones who didn't? I wasn't carrying them with me into the next chapter. And speaking of next chapters, that morning, in the parking lot, I met someone. Not in a rom-com kind of way. There were no dropped coffee cups or fluttering napkins. Just a stranger, tired-looking, hoodie pulled over her head, trying to wrangle two dogs into the back of a Jeep. One of them slipped its leash and ran straight toward me, knocking my bag out of my hand and breaking the eggs against my boot. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," she said, rushing over. I looked down at the mess. And for some reason, I laughed. Like, really laughed. From the gut. The first real laugh in months. "It's okay," I said, wiping yolk off my jeans. "Honestly, I've been through worse." She smiled. "Well, that's a low bar." Her name was Jordan. She was a volunteer at the local shelter. We talked for 5 minutes. Then 15. Then she asked if she could Venmo me for the eggs. I said she could buy me new ones over breakfast sometime. We haven't had that breakfast yet, but I think we will. And here's the part one never thought I'd get to write. I'm okay. Not back to normal. Not better than ever. Just okay. I sleep through the night now. I listen to music again. I let the light back in. Lakin's gone, but I'm still here. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not ashamed of who I am or what I went through. Because I didn't lose her. I found myself.